It has been a long time. I know it's been a long time since I made a video addressing or anything to do with cologne. It's been about, I want to say the last video I made was 8 months ago. Yeah, life has been lifing. Today's video is one that I probably should have made a long time ago. The beginner guide to fragrances. I'll be giving 5 tips on what beginners should and shouldn't be doing when it comes to getting into fragrances. The first tip that I have: you do not need to break the bank on one fragrance. You don't. Big influencers talk about all these seemingly exotic colognes and fragrances that will cost you half of your rent, more than likely, just to buy a 50 milliliter bottle, if not less. Expensive does not always equal better. You can get a very good quality fragrance, like, what's one that I did? Mont Blanc Legend Spirit. You can get that, and I'm pretty sure the retail of that is under $100. If you get it at a discounter, it's probably even less. You can go ahead and get that fragrance and smell very fresh, very clean, very good for a fraction of the price as if someone were to buy, I want to say, Aventus Creed. The price difference in the two, worlds apart. You're still going to smell good with just getting the cheaper fragrance. You might smell a little more expensive if you get Aventus Creed. I've never personally smelled it, so I can't really say how much better it is. But I do know that I've smelled the supposed clone of Aventus Creed. It didn't leave any mind-blowing impressions. Maybe it's because the clone wasn't all that accurate, or maybe it's because the original fragrance isn't all that great in the first place. Don't know, not gonna give a review on it because I don't know whether or not it's good or bad. All I'm saying is you can still smell good without breaking the bank. Because when you're starting out, you want to figure out what it is that you like. And I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't gamble on buying a $300+ fragrance when I'm first getting into colognes. There's just no point in doing that. You can buy, I want to say you can buy around maybe 3 to 5 good colognes with all that money you spent on that one. Tip number 2. I mentioned in my previous tip briefly about huge influencers and content creators. You do not need to have nearly as many colognes and fragrances as they do. 3 to 5 will work just fine. You need an everyday fragrance and a special occasions fragrance, honestly. Whether that be like a date night, a wedding, etc. You can even go as far as to split them up by seasons. That's really gonna put you to having more than just about 3 fragrances, but if that's what you wanna do, that's what you're gonna do. These big influencers have made or found a way to make a profit on having so many colognes, whether it be that they sell off samples, which I kind of do to the people who I'm close with. I kind of sample off my fragrances as well. So I get that. It's a way to have your investment have a good enough return for you to justify having that many scents. Also, those fragrance influencers have a huge passion for the colognes in the cologne game. And I'm not gonna lie, I understand it. I don't care nearly as much because I kind of stopped myself from going even deeper into that rabbit hole. I haven't bought a new fragrance in, I want to say, it's been a while. I want to say I'm coming up on a year, maybe. Having more than 10 colognes in your collection, you really don't need to buy anymore. You're going to be good for a hot minute without having to buy another cologne. Starting out, all you need, 3 to 5. That's as much as you actually need. And I wouldn't even say you need 5 either. But if you just want to have a little extra, then you'll stand out a little more than just the average person. But you don't need 20, 30, 50, 100. You don't need that many fragrances. Tip number 3. Probably the most important tip that I can give on this list. Do not, and I can't stress this enough, do not blind buy a fragrance. Now, here's a situation where it's do as I say and not as I do. I'm not what I would consider a beginner. I'm definitely intermediate, approaching the advanced, but I wouldn't go that far. I would say I'm like right in the intermediate stage. I have about 40 bottles of cologne myself. So as a collector, I'm well more advanced than the average person. But for a beginner, do not blind buy any fragrance. Unless you're comfortable with taking that risk and potentially losing X amount of dollars. And if you're gonna go and blind buy a fragrance that is 200 plus, you better be damn sure you know exactly what fragrances and what scents you like. Because if you're gonna go and blind buy fragrances that are that expensive, you need to have a good grasp on what it is that you like in a scent. I would advise heavily that you smell and test the fragrances that you're thinking about purchasing before you commit to it. This way, you will get a good sense of the projection, the performance, the longevity of the fragrance, and how well the fragrance meshes with your body chemistry. If you decide to blind buy, you don't get those benefits of seeing how well a fragrance works. So you're more than likely, if you don't end up liking the fragrance, going to be out of money and sitting there with the fragrance and just regretting the decision that you made. Now, what you could do is you could sell it to somebody else, but you're not going to be able to sell it for retail price unless you literally only sprayed one time. And even then, the value of the scent depreciated. So you're going to have to deal with the fact that you lost X amount of money and you're not going to get that same amount back unless you just find somebody who's willing to buy it at retail price. I have made a few blind buy mistakes myself. So that's what I mean. You blind buy, you're taking a risk, you're taking a gamble. I'm comfortable doing that. I have a good idea of what scents that I do like, and I know how to figure out the note breakdown of any fragrance I'm interested in, and based off that, knowing whether or not I'll like the scent or not. Also, I do watch a lot of influencers when it comes to this, but I will also emphasize, do not always trust influencers on their opinions. Everybody's nose is different. We all perceive notes in fragrances differently. Some people may claim a fragrance is sweet, spicy, earthy, like that. But when you smell it, you might get a different scent profile. So you can't always rely on somebody else's perception of a fragrance. Not everybody likes the same things. Somebody could give a fragrance a 10 out of 10 review, but you might give it like a 6 or even worse, a 4. And it's all because of what they prefer versus what you prefer. So smell and test the fragrance before you buy it, unless you're comfortable losing X amount of dollars. I want to say I spent a good amount of money on blind buys that went wrong. So do as I say, not as I do. Tip number 4. Know how many sprays you need with each fragrance. All fragrances are not made the same. You can't spray 3 of every type of fragrance and expect it to work just as good with everyone. You need to know the oil concentration of each fragrance. Your Eau Freshes, those go around, I want to say 1 to 3% oil concentration. Eau de Cologne, that's 2 to 4. Now you're getting into your standard, most well-known fragrances. So your EDTs, your Eau de Toilettes, those have about 5 to 15% oil in them. And that 15 is a high bar. EDPs, those go for about 15 to 20 or 25% oil concentration. Those are the main ones that I typically gravitate towards, the EDPs. And they typically have the best scent profiles in the lines from whatever cologne I decide to purchase with Cologne House. Now you have your parfums, which come in at about 25 to 35% oil concentration. I think it's more 20 to 30, but either way, it's around that range. And then you have your extrait de parfums. That is the highest oil concentration outside of just a regular oil you can get in a fragrance. And that goes about 35 to 45%ish. And that 45 is very high, but I do own a few extrait de parfums. I'm gonna tell you this much, they last a good long time. But when you know the oil concentration of each fragrance that you have, you can adjust accordingly to how many sprays it is that you're gonna need for that fragrance. For example, Jean Paul Gaultier's Le Beau, that fragrance, it's slowly creeping into a more daily wear for me because it's summertime, and I've gotten to the point where I'm more used to smelling it, and it's kind of grew on me a little bit. That's an EDT. For that one, I'd have to spray roughly about 10 sprays. A good 10 sprays of an EDT. Now EDTs, because they're less concentrated with oil, they don't last as long. EDPs and up, you don't have to spray nearly as much because the oil concentration is much more. So it'll stick to your skin and it'll last a little longer. Typically, there are some bad performing EDPs and parfums out there. And there are some very well performing EDTs out there as well. But I'm giving this based on the majority. Majority of EDTs will not perform as well as majority EDPs, parfums, especially not no extrait de parfum. It's not even gonna touch that. How I mentioned with Le Beau, that one, I have to spray about 10 times-ish, right? But that goes more into what my regular spray routine is more than anything. But I also have Jean Paul Gaultier Le Beau Le Parfum. That one, higher oil concentration, same line, different scent profile. Well, not totally different, but it is noticeably different. I don't need to spray nearly as much when it comes to that one because of the oil concentration is a little bit higher. You should always spray the key pulse points on your body. So places like your wrist, your inner elbow, behind your ear, those pulse points will help the fragrance break down and expand. It'll project out more because this is where a lot of body heat typically tends to accumulate. So the more heat, the faster the breakdown. Now, that doesn't mean the fragrance will evaporate quicker and not be noticeable to anybody. It just means it'll distribute more and more efficiently as well. Those are places you want to make sure you hit when you're spraying. Now, if you want to spray any more, like I said, depending on the cologne and depending on you as a person, you will know how much you need and for how long you want the fragrance to last or you need it to last. Now, be careful when you are spraying your cologne on your clothing items because depending on the juice of the fragrance and the material and or color of your clothing, you are at risk of staining your clothes. And a lot of people don't want that. And also, when you're spraying on your body, if you know you have sensitive skin, be mindful because you need to properly know how the fragrance is going to affect your skin and in what areas you should and shouldn't be spraying. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. Last tip I'm going to give you, develop a creative and effective spray routine. Have fun with it. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I spray about 10 plus times, and a lot of people may say, oh, that's a crazy amount of sprays on a fragrance. Well, for starters, it depends on the cologne I'm using. I know the performance of said cologne, so I'm gonna spray more or less depending on how strong of a performer it is. Overspraying your fragrances is definitely a real thing. I'm sure a lot of people assume that already. But on the flip side, being a sissy sprayer, shout out Curly Fragrance, is a real thing as well.
Don't be a sissy sprayer.
3 sprays of a eau de cologne or EDT is not gonna cut it. The fragrance will more than likely last you a lot longer, okay? Like the bottle, you won't run out of it as quickly, but you're not gonna get the compliments that you're looking for with the fragrance. Unless you're doing 3 sprays of like a Dior Sauvage elixir. That, good God. Personally, I'm not a fan of the scent profile, but that's a whole nother thing. But it's a performer. I'll say that. It's a monster when it comes to the performance. But like I said, oil concentration is way higher. Eau de colognes, eau de toilettes, those you can't do 3 sprays. I'm sorry, you just can't. I know you may want to save your money. I know you may have heard from your father, your grandfather, your uncle, your cousin, whatever. You probably heard, oh, you don't need to spray that much because then you're overpowering the room or the people around you and all that other stuff. It's true. You can definitely overpower and fill up a room. But if the scent is good, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. I have been told, I've been told many times that I smell strong. My scent fills up a room. It commands your attention. Now, I've gotten better at picking out how much I spray versus the setting that I'm about to put myself in. Because I've made the mistakes before, overspraying a very heavy and strong fragrance going into an enclosed space. Yes, I did smell good, but being in a classroom setting, a lecture hall setting, and knowing people are smelling you and you're pretty much suffocating them, it's not the greatest feeling in the world. I have been sat there thinking, dang, I really overdid it. And I know people know it's me. I can tell they're looking at me. People are covering their noses. People are coughing, sneezing. Again, I smell good, but I smell too strong. Now, that's definitely better than smelling strong and smelling like dog water, but it's just a sacrifice I'm willing to make. And I've learned to adjust to that. And I've also been told by many people, especially when I'm at school, walk into a room, I tend to leave the room and it still smells like me. There's been a saying that's developed by a few people who I know that it smells like Tim in here. Now, at first I heard that, I'm like, you're joking. But after I got past it, I was like, this is not a bad thing because I don't smell bad. I smell really good, in fact, but it's just very strong. And don't let me layer up with a scented lotion and then put on a fragrance. Oh my goodness. Layering is a whole nother thing. Don't be afraid to overspray, because while I may overspray, one, I learned to spray and let the fragrance air out a little bit before I go to wherever it is that I need to be. With that, I now don't have to worry about reapplying my fragrance because there's a good amount on me. As it breaks down and it goes to like the mid and dry down and all the other stuff, it's gonna last me the whole day. From when I leave out the crib to when I get back to the crib and when I'm in for the night, the fragrance is gonna last me. And because I sprayed more, I'm still grabbing compliments left and right when I'm like hour 6 in. In my opinion, there's no need to worry about overspraying if you do it right. I'm not gonna overspray my Extrait de Parfum cologne. I'm not gonna spray that 10 times over. That's going to kill the people in my vicinity. That's not worth it. It ain't gonna cut it. It's not worth it. It's doing too much. The spray routine, that's entirely up to you. What I typically do is, like I said, I mentioned I get the pulse point, so I get my wrists, my inner elbow, and behind my ears. Cool, I make sure I check those off. But what I also do, I give a good spray on the inside of the arm, inside, because you go give somebody a hug, and it kind of like the scent wraps around them like a little blanket. So I do that. Get a light spray on the outside of the arm. You don't really need that, but I kind of do it just because, I already did the inside, so I might as well get the outside too, I get the middle of my chest, and that's directly on the skin. This isn't the clothing yet. Directly on the skin, middle of the chest. That's where I go. 2 sprays on the chest, on the shirt, okay? Then I get the neck, obviously, but all sides. So I get both sides of the neck, and then I get the front and then the back. The back is to leave a little scent trail, and the front, you know, you always got to get the front of the neck. And that's essentially my spray routine. I got creative with it because I figured, hey, I got to see what works. That's what worked for me. Also, I watched a few other videos about spray routines, got a few different bits and pieces from different influencers and different creators who do the same thing that I'm aspiring to do when it comes to this stuff. So it's a process, it's a journey, it's a learning experience. You don't have to do the same spray routine that I do. You can copy it if you want to. If you see that that's giving you results, go ahead. By all means, take my spray routine. If you find a better way that's more efficient for you, go ahead and do that. But don't be afraid to get creative and have fun with it. And like I said, if you feel as if you oversprayed, everybody makes the mistake, it's okay. Later on throughout the day, you're not gonna worry too much about people thinking you smell too strong. Just let it air out a little bit, about 30 minutes. That's what I typically do. I typically put on my fragrance anywhere between 15 to 45 minutes before I have to be somewhere, depending on how strong the scent is. Yeah, guys, that was my beginner guide to fragrances. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope it was very informative. I hope it helped a few of you out who had some questions. If you have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them. You just got to leave them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. I'm not an expert on this stuff. I'm just a guy who likes colognes, and I like to share the knowledge that I've gained. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you want more content like this. I plan on doing a few more videos very soon on the cologne side of things. Now, if you haven't noticed, I do also have a liking to fitness. I do fitness videos. I've posted a few fitness shorts on my page, which have done surprisingly well. I was not expecting for them to consistently do that well. But it seems like YouTube Shorts is very, very receptive to my fitness content, which I am grateful for. And I plan on doing more fitness videos, like actual videos, and uploading them here as well. So if you guys are into that as well, you can look forward to those videos coming pretty soon. But I would like to thank you all again for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.